feel great admiration in presenting before you our first panelist, Dr. Raghvendra Hunasgi. Dr. Raghvendra Hunasgi is a seasoned digital transformation leader and strategist, expert in branding, marketing, product launch, digital transformation, and so on. He is a Harvard Business School alumni, social media influencer, author, and marketing leader. An experienced entrepreneur and leader, he found H&B Consulting to fulfill a vision to transform enterprise through digital marketing and sales enablement. After successfully selling it to a Valley-based venture capitalist, he co-founded Thought Folks Group. He is also active in non-profit organizations and political worlds, alongside with his organizations like United Nations, CRY, and iCanvas.org. He has been involved with several projects like presidential election campaign on social media for a West African country, world's first STM social media threat management engagement for the Olympics. His accolades include Economic Times Young Leader and Forbes Top Social Media Influencer. He has also won multiple national and international awards for marketing and branding campaigns. We welcome you, sir.
Introducing our next panelist, Dr. Sajal Jain. Dr. Sajal Jain is a distinguished consultant to a startup companies and promoter and advisor of mobile computing company and a leading young generation retail business speaker. He has worked with cross-cultural Fortune 500 clients in USA, Europe, Canada, Italy, UAE, Republic of Chile, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Germany. He is principally experienced in fashion technology, retail fulfillment, machine learning, and e-commerce platforms. An engineering gold medalist, MBA, and a PhD by qualification, he is a fellow of Life Management Institute from Atlanta and American Institute of CPCU, Insurance Institute of America. He has been associated with Cornell University for program in strategic management. Dr. Sajal is the winner of Karak's Brilliance 2001 Award and Microsoft.NET Challenge. Recently, he was crowned as the Young Manager 2009 and 2010, competing against leading Indian corporates like Tata, Aditya Birla, Bharti Enterprises, and L&T. Dr. Sajal has more than a decade of experience in building and running large technology programs in retail and insurance marketplace technology and software development. We welcome you, sir.
Introducing to you our next panelist, Professor Krishnakumar Narayanan. Professor Narayanan is a top bank executive turned academician. He is currently Dean and Director of Geetham School of International Business at Visakhapatnam. A graduate in Commerce and Mathematics and a postgraduate in Management with specialization in Banking and Finance, Professor Narayanan is a rank holder. He has also earned an advanced diploma in management research from All India Management Association, IMA, New Delhi, and is a PhD in business administration for his work on risk management from Central University of Aligarh. Dr. Narayanan's professional pursuit spans more than 2 decades of experience in field of banking, finance, consulting, academics, research, and training. He is an accredited trainer and visiting professor in universities, business schools, and is an avid interdisciplinary researcher, having published more than 60 publications, including many Scopus-indexed publications, policy documents, to his credit in national and international journals. We welcome you, sir.
I feel sheer admiration in presenting before you the moderator for our session today, Dr. Bidyanand Jha. Dr. Bidyanand Jha is a perfect blend of industry and academic expertise. He has worked with organizations such as Hindustan Times, Cummins India, Institute of Business Management and Research, Global Business School, and has been working with Kirloskar Institute of Advanced Management Studies, Pune, since last 7 years. He has a total experience of 13 years. The topper at Vishwasvaraya Technological University for MBA program and a PhD in social media marketing, he has published 20 research papers and 10 case studies in the field of consumer science, online marketing, and social media marketing. He has won 4 Best Paper Awards in international conferences awarded at University of Colombo, Sri Lanka, ICFAI Business School, Pune, University of Hong Kong, and National University of Singapore. He has been a certified assessor for CII, that is Confederation of Indian Industry, and Exim Bank for EFQM model, that is European Foundation for Quality Management, and has been assessing various companies for the CII Exim Excellence Awards. He enjoys training marketing minds and is associated with ASMA as a project head since August 2015 and has been working along with the team of FMA Digital and ASMA for the growth and betterment of the project. We welcome you, sir. We welcome Dr. Geoffrey Clement back on the stage. I would now like to hand over the stage to our moderator, Dr. Jha, to take the session ahead. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction for the panelists. Good morning all. I think this is the first panel we would like to throw some light on the business challenges we face in terms of digital innovations. And we have a panel which is, I think, covering a wide range of industries, academia, and thought process. So we will start from that, and we'll go with 2 rounds normally. First round will be each panelist will get some 2 minutes to answer the questions which I'm going to ask or to enlighten the audience about that. And then in the second round, we'll go for 5 minutes each question. And then we'll wind up the panel discussion. Whenever we look at this digital innovation these days, we have heard since morning about digital innovation, but we still find a lot of gap between the so-called digital innovation and countries where digital innovations has happened. There is a gap between what digital innovation means, what value out of digital innovation means, what is perceived by the industry, what is perceived by the human beings, and how it is implemented, and the desired outcome versus the actual outcome. In the circumstances of such wide variety of digital disruption, I would like to take the first question with Dr. Geoffrey. Dr. Geoffrey, we look at various buyers and sellers' psyche, and we find that the technology has been shaping a lot of cultural values in every society. And now when we are looking for global village, many organizations are working in parallel countries. This social interaction over the site has developed a lot of interaction between people in terms of social change, their beliefs, political discussions, and the ecosystem as a whole. What type of challenges you think the industries will face to handle these type of complex markets?
Thank you very much for your question. This is indeed a very deep question to throw us in at the deep end right at the beginning. But I appreciate that. It's a very complex question. Is this functioning? Yeah, good. It is indeed a very complex question and is really one of the challenges that we face as the digital world advances so quickly. To put it in one way, it's an acceleration and a greater dimension of what has been happening over the last 3 or 4 or 5 centuries, in which there have been sudden incursions and mixing of values of different cultures and different countries, of different values, of different levels of socio-economic status. But as I said in my remarks in the opening session, what has happened earlier in human history has tended to be, in many cases, linear and therefore manageable. The big difference here is that the changes are happening so rapidly and on such a large scale that they are truly disruptive. And in the parts of the world where, in a sense, the population is becoming invaded by technology, it sometimes is very hard to resist, because it can be very tempting to understand what is available elsewhere in areas where there may be more in terms of material goods, where quality of life may appear to be better, but actually may not be better in reality, then it's quite seductive to get drawn into that. And I think that it therefore is the responsibility of those of us who have more experience perhaps and more responsibility in society to help guide the direction of this change. Now, of course, there are ways in which digital technology can be of advantage, and perhaps we can deal with that a little bit later. For example, as you mentioned in your opening remarks, the digital transformation affects different sections of society in different ways. And as you said, where we have the less privileged and the less accessed part of the communities in many countries, they are not necessarily reaping the benefits of this digital transformation. But there are ways in which this can be done. So, for example, I've seen in this country, indeed, in Andhra Pradesh itself and in Telangana, the way in which last mile accessibility is helping rural communities in terms of understanding agricultural markets, in terms of education, school education for people in rural communities. So if the changes and the developments in the digital world can be implemented in a way that is of advantage to those communities, that perhaps will help immunize those communities against those aspects which are less favorable, which are perhaps more dangerous, and which can dilute the cultural values. But it is indeed a tremendously complex question, and perhaps one of the biggest challenges facing us as the digital age proceeds.
Thank you, Dr. Geoffrey. I will move to Dr. Raghvendra and try to understand that I am also feeling the same, that the market is very complex, and I don't think any organization is yet able to find out what is the success recipe of this kind of digital transformations. And people say that if you have to be ahead today, you have to run faster than what you were running earlier. In such cases, when you are more dependent upon technology and less dependent upon the people who are operating the technology, what do you think will be the success recipe of business houses these days?
That's a very nice question. On a lighter note, I'll just start with a lighter note. We started H&B Consulting during the introduction when she was reading out. We started a digital transformation company, very nascent, just looking at how we can transform different large tier organizations. We started the company, and in 11 months we had an exit. And this can only happen if it's a digital company. So we started the organization, two of us from Harvard Business School. We started in the campus, came back to India, Hyderabad, started the operations. We were acquired by a Valley-based private equity firm for $3 million. I mean, no one would probably do such quick acquisition if it is non-digital. So that was the first stint of success we had. Coming back to the point where are we in this whole journey of digital transformation, the world has already taken off. I'll just give you a few examples, and you guys can probably Google it when you have time. We work with a bank in UK called Atom Bank. I'm sure you might have heard of this. So Atom Bank is the only bank in the world where there is no physical presence at all. So Atom Bank doesn't have branches, ATMs and all of that. It's 100% digital, mobile wallet, and all the transactions happen through digital. So they don't have any employee headcount, cashiers and managers and bankers, and all they have is a set of customer care representatives and then all the digital guys. So that's about banking, right? If you look at US, one of the airlines we serve is Southwest Airlines. Southwest is one of the low-cost airlines in US, and there everything is digital. They don't have any more print the ticket, take it, and all that. So everything, they have an app called Passport. When you book a ticket, it automatically gets downloaded, and you use the app to pass through the security, go check in your food preferences, everything is taken care. So every industry, whichever industry you can think about, is getting like totally disrupted. I mean, in India, we are working with two cool banks, S Bank and IndusInd Bank, where we are looking at how do we kind of do more digital and less of in-person banking and in-person interactions. It obviously has the flip side that we are losing the whole touch and feel part of it, but it is inevitable. I mean, almost the industry has taken off. So every facet of every organization is taking digital big way. One of the most ambitious projects that we kind of lead today is in partnership with ICRISAT. We work with close to a community of 7,000 plus farmers, where we are trying to bring in the digital innovation and digital disruption to farmers. We work with a set of farmers in Telangana, in Nizamabad and few other areas, where there is a SaaS-based product called Plantix. So when you get a chance, you can probably look up for it. There is a mobile app. You just go to a plant or a crop, You have a disease, you just take a picture, upload it, it goes to the cloud, tells you what kind of disease it is, what kind of fertilizers it would need, what kind of water, what kind of humidity, everything. I mean, the whole thing is tech.
In these circumstances, if you have to name that these are the 5 things which a digital company should be doing in order to, be ahead than others.
Right.
So what will be those 5 areas?
So top 5 areas for an organization that wants to be a digital company is number 1, transforming your whole customer experience into digital. Customer is again, key part of any organization. So what are all those different touch points that you create for customer is number 1. Number 2, an active digital listening is important. Whether you're in a business of selling clothes, e-commerce, airlines, bank, you should know what your customers are talking about. And digital listening is a very powerful aspect where you do an active listening on social media, websites, forums, everywhere, and understand what your customers need. Third is the targeted outreach. So if you want to be a digital disruption company or a digital transformation company, you should know what you want to cater to your target audience, right? For example, Target is one of our customers in US, and there the mailer, the advertisement, the social media post that a 18-year-old youngster will see versus a 30 versus a 45-year-old is all tailor-made and customized. So that's the third key thing. Fourth thing is, how do you make sure that the whole transactions across digital platforms is cashless? Today in India, we still have to enter our net banking, login ID, password, and all of that. But we are getting to a stage where you have a unique ID and your transaction is done. And end is, the last point is, how do you kind of tailor all of these together and make it a very seamless experience for moving a non-digital enterprise to a digital enterprise?
Okay. Now I will move to Sajal Jain, and I will try to understand. There is no definite metrics given till now, which will tell the organization that if you want to measure your digital effectiveness, this is the metrics you should be using and you should be knowing about where you stand. And every organization comes out with something new, some new tools, some new technologies, and try to adapt that and try to implement some processes of their organization. So in this crossroad of the managers who are going to be in the organization, what would you advise them in terms of making a right decision for this digital technology?
Thank you, Dr. Jha, for this loaded question. Trying to put this in perspective, if you all open your mobile phones now and search for chaat masala on Amazon, you will see 167 different types of chaat masalas. That's how you bring digital and bring people and join intersections. So this was the first problem when I landed from US to Amazon Hyderabad, that there was a concern that we don't have Indian products on Amazon. So there was a lady, she was 67 years old, and they were pursuing her to use Amazon, which is like in the journey of acquiring a digital customer. And she said that, why should I shop on Amazon? Because my part kirana wala gives me a chaat masala, which is like MDH chaat masala. So that was the first problem. And I said that, how do you solve this problem? How do you get those chaat masalas online on Amazon? And today, as I said, if you search right now on your phones, chaat masalas, you get 167 varieties of chaat masalas. So we did research like how many chaat masalas are available. So like there is MDH, there is Catch, there are like many brands. So you found that there are 181 chaat masalas in India which are sold in all kirana stores in southern India. We partnered with all of them, and then we have now the 167s which are online. So the part of the problem here is like joining the digital with the physical. How do you solve that? How do you get people online, transact online is a great challenge. How do you in a country like India, you can promise people that you're gonna pay me and you're gonna get after 2 days this product? That's a big challenge. That's why a lot of online platforms like us also have like cash on delivery. First take the products in hand and then pay for that. The other area where I've experienced something like what Dr. Jha is entailing is something which touched the governments. We have a very qualified ex-IS officer. So this story goes back in 2016 in the Mahakal temple in Jain. In the Kumbh Mela, there were like 1 crore people trying to get into the Jain city. And the capacity of the city, if you fill every square inch in Ujjain, is only 10 lakh people. So the government officials, the IS officer in charge for the Kumbh Mela, had a challenge like, how do I match these 1 crore disciples who are trying to come into a Jain city? Now, these people who are trying to come into a Jain city would not go out of the city without they have seen the Mahakal temple. Now, if you have 1 crore people trying to come inside a city which cannot hold more than 10 lakh people, that's the max capacity, they have an unimaginable goal. So how did digital acquire that problem, and how was this solved? This was solved by something called as like Oculus Digital 3D headset. So a 3D headset and a 3D Wi-Fi feed was created inside the Mahakal temple in the Kumbh Mela, and that these headsets were installed at the outskirts of Ujjain for like 10,000 places in Ujjain, so that 1 crore people can get the Mahakal Aarti. But this story looks as fascinating was not reality when we were in the collector's office. And he said that, prove me that if somebody wears these headsets, will he have the Mahakal darshan or not? So we said that let's put this on test. So we call a maid who does the sweeping in the collector's office and ask her, if you wear this headset, do you see the God? And see, when she wore these headset, we took a picture of that moment, which is there on my feed, where you will see that she put a 5 rupee note from her pocket and said that I am seeing the God. Mahare to Bhagwan dikh rahe hain saab. At that point of time, it was decided in the 2016 Kumbh Mela, we're going to stop all the traffic outside and it's going to be digital. So these are the examples in real life. When you go digital, there are very hard physical problems that need to be solved. So for example, making digital payment possible is a hard problem to make the cash acceptable. So those are the challenges that you solve when you go from like physical to digital.
Okay. Thank you, Sajal. I'll go to Professor Krishnakumar and I'll try to understand one thing. That he's also saying that there is a problem in looking at digital and then managing your physical transformations to digital transformations. Most of the business houses are facing a problem of having employee base from old generation to the new generation. And people who are new, they are very good in technology, tools. People who are old are fearful of those things. Takes time to adapt that. So how do you see this balance of new thought, aggressive thought, faster moving thought versus traditional thought, slow thought, and evaluative thought going along with the industry?
Well, again, I think every passing question is loading it more. Okay. Fine, it's going to be a challenge nevertheless. But suffice it to say that it is, there is going to be, when we are talking about the disruption happening across the board in every facet of it, definitely, there is going to be a lot of reskilling that is required. That's a given. Suffice it to say also that it is very likely that many of those technologies on which even the so-called technologies were competent earlier may have to go for a lot of reskilling. We are already seeing it. If you look at even the retrenching of our own IT brothers and sisters from the US or even in India, you would notice that many of them middle management people are all were of that Y2K variety. Isn't it? They could not upgrade to what is required now. Perhaps a skill on R or a Python or whatever, isn't it? So I mean, so even amongst the so-called technologies breed itself, you are going to see a lot of reskilling requirement. And so coming, down the line, it is going to be still a bigger challenge. And there are already a lot of reports available on that. In fact, World Bank report talks about it. Even in a country like India, there is going to be more than 70% of the jobs. It says 68 point. In fact, I'm going to talk in my session also. I have already ideated on that. And about 68.3% of the jobs that you see here now is not going to be there 5 years down the line. I'll give you a small example. In fact, I was there along with my son a couple of days back in one of those smaller, chain of, departmental store. So I was just telling my son, look at this store. because he's in fact want to be an IT kind of a geek. He's in the, want to be an IIT and kind of a variety. He's a good programmer, incidentally. And I was telling, you see, many of the, in every row they have got one person just, to look or handhold people who are coming, to say what is located, where is soap, where is that grocery, this grocery. I was telling him that 5 years down the line, none of this, maybe now, right now, it has got 60 people in that, so-called department. Maybe this whole store will run with just about 10 people. And the maximum crowd you are seeing in where? Where you are going to do the billing part of it. This whole billing is going to be, the fintech and what not, they have already talked about. It's going to change totally, and it is all going to be app based actually. You need to just show your mobile and it will take away the money, and maybe the basket that you are going to carry, you will have an IoT device that every time when you pick a product from the shelf and put it, it is going to increment in terms of value as well as the amount, the item. And it is going to be very simple, just about 5 years down the line. Already most of these things are there, but only thing, there are a lot of, changes required in terms of IoT devices, the ideation that is required.
So basically the industries have to spend a lot of money training
Absolutely.
the traditional people.
There is going to be a lot of retraining, and it is our job to tell them, our own brothers and sisters, that there are going to be opportunities. It is going to create a lot of opportunities also. Okay.
Dr. Geoffrey, I will quote one report. It's again a loaded question, but I will request you to answer it in the stipulated time. I read a report by International Institute of Auditors. The report has two facets of that. One facet is the auditors telling about the organization, and second is the MDs talking about auditors. So the auditors are saying, they give a lot of reports auditing your organization, and then they tell you that this is not right and that is not right. The MDs are saying that the days are gone when you are supposed to tell me what is right or not. You tell me what I can do next. And your report is only doing a postmortem of my previous act. You tell me what next I can do. So there is no value of any auditor in the organization. That's what the MD says. Do you feel the same?
This is a great question. And thank you for challenging us so much. We're all getting completely unexpected questions. And speaking for the other colleagues on the panel, everyone has done very well, so I hope we can match that. These are areas where I think that digital input can be of great value. We've probably all been in situations where we are either in some sense auditing, either not necessarily as an auditing company, but you are helping to provide a report on an organization, or you are the organization that is being reported about in some way, not necessarily as an audit, but as someone coming in and giving a review of how you're performing. And these are very difficult challenges, both for the auditor and the audited, because you come with a different perspective. And it's very difficult very often to leave your perspective behind. Now, auditor companies, they have a legal responsibility, but they also have a liability. So if their main responsibility in law is that they are responsible for pointing out things that are wrong, and that's the way that the law is formulated, and if they don't point out those things that are wrong, then the auditors themselves are liable. If the company, and particularly the board of the company, don't listen to what the auditors tell them, then they are also legally liable. But I think what you pointed out in your question is that this is really just one side of the story. These are, in a sense, negative auditors. They're not positive auditors. Now, what I'm trying to do as I say these things is to relate it to the digital world. Because what I think is happening is that, we said this in the opening session, it came across in quite a few different perspectives, that the way that digital transformation is occurring, it's occurring in a non-linear way, and very often, most often than not, a unpredictable way. So the challenges for an organization and the challenges for someone who comes in to observe that organization are much more challenging than they would have been 20 or 30 years ago. So I've been in situations where an auditor would come along and say, look, I think the way that you're running your accounts is not the most efficient way. You could look at your accounts in this way, which would make it much more valuable for predicting how your company will perform or how the organization will run forward, and better ways of organizing those activities, those areas that are less fertile, those that are more fertile. But the challenges become much greater because, as you said, if an audit is really a post-mortem on what has happened so far, it doesn't necessarily hold true for anything that may happen in the future when methods are so different. I think what has to happen is that you have to have not just the legal auditors who are coming in as accountants and looking at your books and your performance. There should be a new profession of technical auditors who come in. This may now be voluntary, it may become mandatory at some stage, that if your company or your organization has been functioning in a particular way and your technical auditors come in and say, the technology you're using here is okay. For example, the people on the shop floor in the department store, but you may want to look at automating the basket, which may help to economize and make your workflow more efficient. The point that I was going to come back on the points you made is that if you go shopping, you're looking for a particular value, and this comes back to the beautiful point you made earlier about the happiness rate. Why are we doing these things? Why are we improving technology? Are we doing it in order to commute 4 hours a day, or to spend 16 hours on our digital device, or is it to improve the quality of life? Now, there are some things which are non-digital, which improve the quality of life. So if the shop assistants could be there to help you improve the quality of your shopping experience, but spend less time on the actual process of shopping and buying and selling, then that would improve the quality of life. Oh. So that's a bit of a digression, but I think it's in line with what we need to do in terms of positive auditing.
Yeah.
It must be much more on the technical and technological auditing. Not the paper and the figures, which by law has to be vigilant and point out things where you're at risk.
Thank you.
But it has to be a new vision of how do you improve organizational efficiency.
Thank you. Dr. Raghvendra, when I go to many organizations these days, and when I meet my clients for consulting and other purpose, I find that most of the people talk about ROI. Right. And that is called as return on investment. Whereas in the digital platform, people are losing ROI, that is return on identity. So they go on doing a lot of things and they lose the main identity they had and they start competing into different environment. So how do you balance between ROI, that is return on investment, versus return on identity?
So that's identity is a very, very gray area, right? I mean, that's one area that Dr. Nadeem also kind of touched upon. So I worked in Google for 6-7 years, started in Mountain View, and I was part of a lot of interesting teams. Google is a cool place to work for. So I'll just throw a question, right? How many of us use Gmail in this room? I'm sure all of us use Gmail, and all of us at some point would have sent some attachments in your email, right? So do you know who is the owner or who owns the piece of attachment that you send in your email? Right, so there are 3 owners. Let us say if I send a photograph to my father, the guy who captured the photograph is owner number 1, the guy who is receiving is owner number 2, and owner number 3 is Google because it is residing in Google server, number 1. And the second part about identity is there is nothing called physical delete. When you delete an email, when you delete an attachment, the only thing that is deleted is the link to that mail or link to that file, but the file resides there forever. So one aspect that is not so great, probably 2 or 3 aspects that are not so great about digital transformation is identity, security, and privacy, right? If 90% of us do not have this habit, including me, 99% of us don't have the habit of reading EULA, right? End user license agreement. When you create a Google account, it will say, I accept, and then you move on. The I accept page has 34 pages document where they literally say, I own your data, I own the content, I own your Gmail account. Same is the case with Facebook, Twitter, and all of them. So that part is kind of gray, and things are happening there. But ROI versus RO. So again, coming back to that question, right? You start as a digital marketing shop. I mean, that's what happened with us. We started as a digital marketing agency and then saw that there was a lot of opportunity in digital listening and digital outreach. So went there, graduated there. We were serving corporates. We left corporates and went after politicians because we were running campaigns for 3 presidents in Africa and all of that, and totally became a different entity and got acquired for some other reason altogether. The private equity firm that acquired us was interested in the algorithm we had, which was social listening, and they wanted to listen into people's data to understand how many HNIs are there in India, how many would probably want to invest in my next fund and things like that. So the good part, probably I would say it's less of a disadvantage, more of an advantage, is digital has vast opportunity. I mean, you start at point A, but you will eventually end up graduating to point B, point C, and doing multiple things. So it's a
Okay.
plus and a minus.
Okay. Now I'll come to Sajal and I will try to understand because he handles Amazon. So he should tell us now that in this legal perspective, what Raghvendra was mentioning, that data is owned by 3 people and you own a lot of data from us. So how do you balance between ethics, legality and compliances?
Yeah. This is a challenge in the digital era. Like, is your identity really yours? Is your information that you're transacting online really belongs to you, or it belongs to the carrier? So the example which Raghvendra was mentioning about Gmail. So we need to get our act straight here. Is like, is the data which is transmitting across the network, is it belonging to you? So there are many laws in different countries. For example, in a lot of European countries, there is a law where you can't save or retrieve or get intelligence out of data. So all these companies in the internet backpack, like for example, Google, Amazon, Twitter, Facebook, they struggle in these countries and they face a lot of lawsuits where you can't draw intelligence out of my data. So my data belongs to me, though you save it, but you can't draw anything out of it. There are countries like India where we are evolving, where the legislation is not very clear, or the fine print is not very clear, like who owns this data, who can use this data, and you can utilize this data for what. So it depends on the legality. Now, building forward from here, if you take example, which is on everybody's mouth, which is on everybody's on WhatsApp, is the burning example of Nirav Modi. So what he did was he used quote unquote a fraud where he transformed the digital SWIFT message, which comes from one bank, and asked the employee to forward it into another bank with a transformed value without having any security or a mortgage security, which essentially is a digital fraud, which is done by a physical person, but by a digital medium. Now, this transaction which happened in India is perfectly legal transaction. So the bank, so for example, the Allahabad bank, who gave all the money to this guy, is legally bound to give this back to PNB, and PNB is bound to that. So this digital transaction, which happened as a kind of a fraud in India, is accepted by the RBI, is accepted by the government, and they are ready to pay these banks this exact amount of money. Now they have a different problem here to get this money back from Nirav Modi. That can be a different problem, but this is a legal transaction. When you come in this space of like the Googles, the Facebooks, the Twitters, the Amazon, this legality is not unclear. It's unclear to the extent of these different governments where you rotate. Now where you have a problem. So the email example that Raghvendra gave, if that email got exchanged between his dad in India and Raghvendra in Europe, is a different use case when if that email got exchanged in India versus India. So these companies can do a different thing, a different business model, a different machine learning algorithm works when the email get exchanged via IP. And then when exchange between different continents, then there is a different algorithm that works behind the scenes. So there's a lot of technology that goes in digital and exploiting, using, and who can use that data. So we all are graduating in that space. How would that pan into? Now, if you take the very recent example of our own finance minister, when he said that the bitcoins are not legal tender in India. Now, after 20 days, when Bitcoin hits $20,000, our finance minister, Arun Jaitley, changes his stand. He said that I don't have a problem if you say that Bitcoin is a commodity. I have a problem when you say that Bitcoin is a currency. So the government itself do change its stance, and it's a learning experience for all of us. Now, it's very true that what are you doing with Bitcoin? It's a digital economy. It's a new way you can exchange value. Now, I don't have to pay you with a currency which is accepted in this country, but I can make a transaction anywhere in Cambodia by just transferring my Bitcoin, no government coming in between, but I'm just transferring some value. So we all are confused to the extent which this conference helps us with this very good question, like what is the boundaries where this kind of data is getting exchanged? So that's where the recipe lies.
Thank you, Sajal. I will ask the last question to the panel. Professor Krishnakumar, there are 4 pillars of an organization. One is people, second is the processes created by people, third is technology, and tools created to support technology. Now, if you look at the base, people are the core of the organization. But there is a rumor in the market that technology is taking over people. So it is not people guiding technology, it is technology guiding people. I would like to know from you, what is your take on that? Who should guide whom?
I think better you ask this question to Sophia. I think she has already answered it also. I guess it is going to be actually not, going to the level of, at the end of the day, the algorithms are going to be created by the humans. So long as you are clear on that, then I don't think there is going to be a very big issue. But suffice it to also include rather, that there could be failures in systems if people managing those systems are not going to be of the requisite variety. So let me put it that way. So, the legality was amply explained just now by our amazing gentleman. And, we can put up systems. That's what, many times we end up doing. But then people who are operating the systems are again going to be of a fraudulent mentality, or, the whole integrity is going to be questioned. Then, I wonder whether any kind of, whether you are going to be talking about digital or whatever systems is going to work. Okay, so somewhere, but it is also true that we were just now discussing regarding the compliance part, the audit part of it. But there is a lot of, in audit also there is a lot of tools that has come in, isn't it? So even Reserve Bank for that matter has gone on, it is not on-site monitoring that they do more, it is more of off-site. Okay, so only when they see, suspicious transaction, things like that, they go after a bank or, a few transaction, things like that. So, you are going to see a lot of digitization in that also. There is, it is going to be everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is the...
Okay, now I'll try to summarize whatever as a panel we have discussed here. I, as a moderator, tried to touch upon various fields which are little complex, because these are the things which normally fears me about digital technology. One is how the culture, markets, people interaction over social media or digital medium are shaping the behavior, beliefs, and how it will impact the organizations when they come to serve us or try to give some solutions for our problem. I try to understand from return on identity to return on investment, because we have largely moved towards return on investment and we worry too much about the cost we incur and then what we get from the market. But in that run, we have seen many organizations who have lost their core values and then they are nowhere. And some organizations was able to keep their core values and still continue with the digital platforms. We try to understand about ethics, compliance, legal, and we also understood about people working in the organization, how technology is disrupting them. And over all the discussion which I am able to summarize is, that digital transformations are going to come. We cannot stop it. We will have to prepare for that. We cannot stop that part also. But what happens is, if we know the core of the digital functions at our organization, possibly we will be able to use it better. And this is an evolving field. Every new day, there will be new things, new learning, and we will have to keep on learning and growing. There is no other way. Thank you, all the panelists. Thank you, SIBM and ASMA, for giving us this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for this wonderful panel discussion. May I now request Dr. Ravikumar Jain to facilitate Dr. Geoffrey Clements. Sir, I now request you to felicitate Mr. Sajal Jain.
Sir, very insightful. Thank you so much for being here. I want to the panel.
May I now request Mr. Swapnil Jain to felicitate Dr. Raghvendra Hunasgi. Sir, may I now request you to felicitate Dr. Krishnakumar Narayanan. May I now request Dr. Tanmoy De to felicitate Dr. Bidyanand Jha.